Everybody in 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Oh,
5,
that's
6,
different.
7, 8. Yeah, just mix it up a little bit. How many times
Yeah.
and how many variations of 5, 6, 7, 8 can we actually do? I mean, there's millions, I'm sure. But as soon as I hit that record button, I black
Panic.
out and it goes to the normal one that I like.
I love it.
Yeah, welcome everybody. This is the Smart in Public podcast where we discuss business, people,
Sometimes
careers, life through the
PR.
eyes of comms and PR people and marketers and you name it. I'm Katie Boyson.
And I'm Katie Dufficy.
And here we are. Welcome. It's a second episode of season 4. I feel like we had a lot of fun last week. We are about to have a lot of fun this week as well with like a super heavy topic. What could be better?
What could be better? It's deep. We're going deep today.
Tell everyone.
Okay. Well, we have both seen a couple of articles and posts recently. I saw a post on LinkedIn just this last week, and I sent it over to Boyson. Essentially, what we want to talk about is ageism in comms. And does it exist? What does it look like? And I think, just to give some context of what we've seen, there was an article out of the UK recently where a really senior comms professional kind of, I guess, outed herself in that she is now on the benefit system in the UK and has really struggled to find a role. And this is someone that, had a deep amount of experience. And I think probably it's a product as well of the job landscape. But I keep seeing these articles about, and a lot of them are women, but we do have some examples of men as well. But a lot of them are women who are at a certain age and a certain point in their career who are really struggling to cut through. And I saw that article, and then I saw a LinkedIn post from another woman that was talking about the same thing, really struggling to find a role with her level of experience. And it just seems to be a thing that's popping up a little bit more. And so we wanted to explore it. And I think talk about our experiences, maybe some of the biases that we've had in the past, and then also look at, as an industry, how do we start to think about this and really, I guess, I would like to say combat it and make sure it doesn't creep into our industry. But going deep. Ageism.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like when we talk about our industry too, and then we think about ageism and, you get past that 40 mark and that seems where people are really kind of falling into then feeling like if they need to find a new role, like what happens from there.
Yeah.
But in an industry that is solely, or like not solely, but like a significant part of our industry runs on relationships, on judgment, and like the level of experience that you have of working with people across industries, across levels. It's really interesting to me that people are being quietly pushed out where that is where we are finally at our peak. Like I would say, like at 42 now, I am at the height of my career. Like I've almost seen it all. I've worked across different businesses, different industry size, different business size, different industry size. And then now to be feeling maybe like I'm getting pushed out when I actually have the most to offer to a business in this position based on you need relationships, you need the know-how, just feels really funny. It feels so opposite of where you should be feeling right now.
Well, it's funny because I think, if I think back to when I started, the people I learned from were in their 40s. I probably thought they were older, but they probably were in their late 30s, early 40s, and beyond that. And I think, like, gosh, what would I have learned if I'd just been around other young people? And so I think we also need to think about the learning that we're losing in people not having these opportunities and kind of having these people be slowly pushed out. I think the only other thing, that I think is maybe a symptom of the culture we're in at the moment is we seem to be in this like young culture where we've got founders who are like 20 something, right? And CEOs. And so I do think in general, we seem to have this sense that like young people are where it's at. And I can't put my finger on it, but that feels like it's changed. I think in past years, it wasn't as as prominent as that, but now it feels like that's happening to me anyway.
Yeah, I've had founders tell me that a particular like PR comms tactic or a best practice put forward feels cringe, and that
Oh,
is a form of measurement, which is really interesting. Just given that sometimes your audience are dinosaurs and you need to reach the dinosaurs, and so maybe it feels cringe, but how are you going to sell if you're not meeting them where they are, and that kind of tactic. So I
yeah.
don't know, like there's definitely like a culture shift and a feeling of like, and what is that separation of like, are you trying to reach your audience or are you trying
Mm,
to look cool? And I think that the younger generation might not know where one suits one, and it
yeah.
might feel cringe and old when you're coming in making these older, like, these
Yeah.
best practice recommendations.
And the
So
irony is it feels like with AI, we're also now saying like, where are the junior roles going to be? Because AI is going to be able to do all this stuff.
that's such a
And
good
so it's like,
point.
so what are we going to have? A big middle where it's like you don't have these deep, deep experienced people.
Okay. No
Noah is
worries.
featuring on the podcast. Noah is here.
Noah, hi.
Noah would just like a cup of milk.
No worries. He's
Milk
so
secured.
cute. His little jammies. So let's maybe dive into some of the numbers that are shared in this article, because I've got them pulled out here, and I think that they're pretty interesting. So some of the stats that were put out there: 78% of women, this is based on a UK pool, so
Oh,
take
interesting.
that in
Yeah.
mind. But 78% of women in communications feel overlooked from 40 onward. So in our industry specifically, 40% think men never get sidelined for age at all. When men do feel it, it lands at the 60 plus mark.
Oh,
So 72% of women over 40 feel their age will block them from a new role. And reports of ageism climbed from 41% in 2021 to 59% in 2025.
oh.
And only 11% of organizations have any age related DE&I target. So those
Yes.
are pretty interesting stats overall. I think, women are definitely feeling it, but I do think that there are men that are feeling it as well. And maybe it's not just in the comms. Like, I know that that's what this is focused on, but the comms industry. But yeah, I just find that because there's so many more women in our industry, like maybe the sample pool could also be a bit skewed. But what are
Yeah.
you seeing? Like, how do you feel about those numbers?
Well, as someone who turned 40 this year, um, no, I, it's a bit scary, first of all. I think, you know, in the age bracket that we're in, I haven't personally felt ageism yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't think and in fact, I've probably had the opposite where I've been in roles as one of the younger people in the room, in an executive room, and felt I've had to prove myself the other way. Like I deserve to
Mm-hmm.
be here. I'm good at what I do. I'm not too young to be in this room. I've felt that way, not
Mm-hmm.
so much anymore, but I have felt that before. Um, but I do think I'm starting to see, like, if you look at what's out there on LinkedIn, it does feel like there is a trend that women who are at a certain point in their career in comms are struggling to find roles and are struggling
Mm.
to land them. And then, it's a competitive job market anyway. And so I think ageism is real. I think it is real against women, particularly. I think women are under a lot of pressure to change the way they look, to stay looking young, probably more so than men.
Mm.
Um, and I think there is a lot of judgment that goes on if someone walks into a room and they're perceived to be a certain age or demographic. Um, I also think the nature of some of our work, like agency, skews young usually,
Mhm, mhm,
and and that's important for an agency to have like fresh ideas, young people, and people who can do the work that's required on the client side and at a charge out rate that isn't, massive. Like it's definitely
yeah.
important. But I do think in that world, it can be challenging to be an older, more experienced person. Um,
Mm.
but I haven't been in agency for a long time. So yeah, I'm not
It's an
sure.
it's an interesting balance, because I feel like there's the piece of, as you get older, you're not as perpetually online. Like families or life or
Mhm.
things, take up more of your time. But then it's like a double-edged sword, because then if you are online all of the time and you're like trying to speak really young, then you're an older person using like all of the kids' buzzwords, and then they like, and then you're cringe, right?
Then you
So I
cringe.
feel like where is the balance, when you're
Yeah.
trying to, maybe like you said, like with all these AI startups that we're seeing and all of that kind of stuff, like where it's younger generations just kind of running the company. Like, how do you come in and speak the language, know about culture, or stay authentic to yourself without looking like somebody that is out of the loop or doesn't get the
Mm.
brand or the business because of that? Because I think that's the other thing is like, I think that a lot of comms now is trying to find the right vibe for your leaders, for where you fit in, for
Yeah.
understanding, like, rather than spray and pray and doing everything, like, what are we actually trying to show within our brand? So I can understand when things get measured as cringe, like want to do a press release, or something
Mm.
like that. But I do think that I just I just think that maybe there's a weird balance that you get in when you start to have maybe grays come through, or you start to, have a different type of look because you are a seasoned professional. But I do think it's really weird, like in the article where her name is Joe, who wrote that article, Joe Carr. She said that she gets told that her skills don't meet the
Yes.
needs, is the feedback
Yes.
that she gets, which is crazy because at that point in time in your career, you have every skill.
Yeah,
Like,
you
so
have
what do
the
you mean it
yeah,
doesn't meet the needs?
yeah,
Is it the cultural awareness? Is it the digital? Like, do they want us to start having more skills that are like,
yeah,
you can use Canva and all that kind of stuff? Like,
yeah.
what are the skills that we're supposed to be looking at now to keep us feeling like we're a good fit for younger, fast growing
And I and I
startups?
I get the impression that's um a line they use because they can't say the real reason. It's like, "We feel like you're too old for this role." They're never gonna say
Hmm.
that. But the thing that I think is interesting about it is, like, for a long time, we've talked about diversity, and, I think a lot of companies have made really big strides in trying to bridge the gap on a lot of areas of diversity. More women in the workforce, more women in leadership, more people of color. I do think age has kind of been the last one and maybe overlooked. And I think, we're coming from, by the way, an industry that I think in general has not been great with this. I'm sure there are other industries that maybe are a little bit different, but I feel tech in particular, you know, has a younger workforce and has probably prioritized that as well. I know there was when we were at Salesforce, there was an employee resource group that was focused on
Hmm.
this. I can't think what their catchy name was. All of them had force at the end of them, but whatever it was. Um, but I think, and there was some panels and stuff that people did when we were there. I do think as a business in general, we should be thinking about, does our workforce represent our customer base in the best possible way? Like, are we and to your point,
Hmm.
like, if you plan to sell to a particular audience or group, do you have that perspective in the room and at the table? And that
Hmm.
applies to a lot of different areas of diversity. And I think age is one that we've sort of let slip a little bit in the focus on everything else.
Yeah.
Um, and then I guess if you double, if you look at the women's perspective, it's like now you've got a double whammy of like women and age.
Yeah.
Um, and I do think women definitely face that as they come into the later parts of their career.
Yeah. Do you think that like maybe it's because with fast growing startups, and I'm just saying that because I'm just basing this on
In
assumptions of like
Yeah.
where this would potentially live. But like, do you think that fresh ideas get equated with youth?
Yes, I do.
I think
Yeah.
so too. And I think that's
Yeah.
probably what they're thinking of, is like that speedy, fresh, creative,
Yeah.
like we want a beginner's mindset kind of thing. When really having a
Yeah.
beginner's mindset actually comes with experience of knowing how to approach situations with a blank canvas, and
Yeah.
to ask questions and first principles and that sort of thing.
Yeah, which is wild because good ideas can come from everywhere. But I think that is, and maybe it's an unconscious bias that we have. that we
Mhm.
think youth equals fresh ideas, youth equals, enthusiasm, youth equals
Like
hardworking.
young and hungry,
Yeah,
like
all of
that
that
kinda
stuff,
thing.
right? And the reality
Mhm.
is like anyone can be that at any age, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't that's about who you are and what you want and all of those things. I think there's probably an element of like and again, I think it's an unconscious bias, but this bias that like older people will phone it in because it's like they're on their last couple of years of work. They're kind of not,
Mhm.
I think there's an element of that. I don't think that's true, but I think that's potentially a perception.
Yeah.
Um, you
Yeah.
know,
You know what? I'll have a moment of vulnerability. Like, I know when I was younger and, the young and
this is a
hungry
safe
with air
space.
quotes. Yeah, thank you. Like I remember seeing like if I came in at like a manager, a senior manager level, and then there was somebody who was maybe like a decade older than me that had the same level role as me.
Mm,
I admittedly used to be like, oh, maybe that person's just not very good. Or they're like I
yeah,
used to
interesting.
associate it with almost like ambition and work quality if they came in
Yeah,
at the same level as me and I was young, because I was like, "Oh, well, when I'm their age, I'll be a VP or whatever." My
yeah,
perspectives and ideas around work have completely changed if you haven't been able to tell over the last 4 seasons. But that I can understand how people would think that, particularly in a really incredibly competitive environment in high growth companies as well.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions. I think there's a lot of unconscious bias that goes on. Um, and I think, but and then the flip of all of that is like we are working later than ever in our lives. Like people are
Hmm.
working, they need to financially. And so we need to think about this because it's not like, people are hitting 55 and are like, okay, I'm out, I'm retired, unless they're like
Hmm.
very successful financially. For the most part, a lot of us are going to keep working. And
Yeah.
so, it worries me when I think about being 50 something, late 50s, early 60s, and being in our industry and thinking, well, what are the roles going to be and what does that look like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do find that I'm less worried about it as a consultant. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know
Interesting.
why, but as a
Mm,
consultant, you're kind of hired to come in to be the hammer, And
yeah.
so
Yeah.
for me, I feel like with age, that actually feels easier to put that persona on and
Mm,
come in and be the hammer and like show people the way in more of an assertive like kind of personality.
yeah. Yeah.
But I can see how like culturally like getting a full-time job how that would feel a lot different, but I don't know if you see that, in full-time roles and kind of the culture that you're seeing there more. But I just think from a consultant perspective, it's actually less of a worry to me. I would be interested if anyone has any opinions from a consulting perspective, if they've had any experiences like that. So write us in and tell
Yeah.
us.
And I'm interested. I mean, this is one of those episodes where I'd love once it comes out for everyone to kind of tell us their experiences or see what they've seen. I mean, where I've been out of agency for a long time, so I'd
Mhm.
love to kind of hear people's agency experience. I think in general, like if I look at my own current environment, like it skews pretty young. But in the business that we're in, I think we definitely value, experience and in different areas. And so I think there's pockets of our business that really require us to have people who have that deep knowledge and deep experience. But there are times, where I feel old at our business
Yeah.
and I'm like, hang on a minute. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think
Hmm.
I think it's an interesting one to think about, and it's something that now that I am on this side of it, I start to think about, well, what would it look like in 10 years, in 15 years if I was going for another role? Um,
Hmm.
and the reality is once you get to a certain point, and so I guess to like the consultant piece is a good example of like maybe that's the path. But I think about it like, okay, if there's a chief comms officer role going, right?
Hmm.
You've got someone who's 40, 45, and you've got someone who's 55.
Yeah.
And comparatively, the experience is similar. Okay, there's someone who's got 10 years on the other one. But like for the most part, as a business, who are you going to hire? Um,
Hmm.
and thinking about longevity, thinking about all of that stuff. Like I do think it gets tricky. And so
Yeah.
I don't think it's easy for business either. But I just as an industry, I hope we don't fall down this path of, once you're past a certain age, you just never see us and we're, gathering
Yeah.
dust.
Well, and I think that there's this bridge too that we can talk about now of like, okay, we know that it's unfair, but how is it unprofitable for businesses? Like, what is
Yeah.
ageism and like hiring with that mindset actually going to cost your company?
Yeah.
One of the things that stands out to me in particular is if you do not have people with the right experience and the seasoned experience in a role, who is mentoring? What does mentorship look like within that company?
Yeah.
Like where do best practices come from? Because can't you just imagine a really young comms team and everyone just flying by the seat of their pants and like making a ton of mistakes as you go, and then it either like I can just see why that would cost the business more money than it would actually be to just hire somebody senior to come on and manage a team.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and like I said, some of the most important learning I've ever had in my life has been from women in that age bracket, right? And you
Mhm.
can expand it, like let's call it 40 to 60, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But I shudder to think if I didn't have those women in different parts of my career, right? And
Yeah.
men too.
Or men.
But
Yeah.
because we're focusing, on ourselves at the moment and our future prospects, but definitely men as well. And
Yeah,
so
this is
I
definitely just for us. This is a conversation
Yeah,
about
this is
you and
like
I.
literally how are we going to have a job in 10 years? That's all this podcast is. Like just
It's a
putting it out there.
brainstorm actually.
It's a
Yeah. Yeah.
brainstorm for our future careers. Um, but yeah, I just think it would be such a shame if we let our industry become, you know, that we don't value experience and we don't value life experience too, right? Like, I think
Mhm.
the other thing there's career experience and the stuff that you've learned in your career, but sometimes it's also the people who've like gone through, and, for me personally, given my current stage of life, like I'm in a season with really young kids. It's really hard to balance career and the family and what we do. And having women around who've literally come out the other side and are now flourishing again in their careers and their kids are older, it kind of
Mhm.
reminds me that like it's okay. Like I can focus on family as well at this time, and then I can come out the other side and really embed into my career again. And there will be seasons of life and all of that stuff, right? And it's like that
Yeah.
life experience of understanding that it's a long road and that I think sometimes we take it so seriously in the moment, and it's just refreshing to see someone who's on the other side of that. And so and that's
Mhm.
my own like that's my lived experience right now, but there's so many other lived experience things that I think people can offer to give that perspective. And
Mhm.
it would be a shame if we
Yeah.
missed out on that, I think.
Yeah. That's such a good point because I do think that 40-year-old threshold, like that is really when caregiving starts to take place and we start to see people taking more
Yeah,
time
on
off, or
either
you have to
yeah,
manage summer holidays, you have gaps in your
older parent.
resume, like, yeah,
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff. So I think that that's such a good point and something to think about as well. And also there's so many women that I have worked with in the comms and marketing industry who put their lives on hold because of their careers. And then at, 42 to 45 in that
Yeah,
age are like, oh shit, I want to have a kid.
plenty. Yeah,
And
yeah.
then they're at that like C-suite level or VP level. Um, and then it's just a totally different market when you're trying to build your family up there. So it's like, should we encourage people to just go have the kid when you want to have a kid? Or like, do we keep continuing this like conversation of put your career first, then have kids? Or even why are people feeling that way as well?
But even I was gonna say, even that's a product to some extent of this idea that like I've got to I've got to get to a certain level and I've got to do that while I'm young, you know?
Mhm.
And I think that's a scary place to be as well. The other thing I think we could do is like get creative with like, okay, so, let's say you've got a portion of women and men who are in their, family making era. Um,
Yeah.
and so you've got a lot of mat leave,
Uh-huh.
mat
I like
leave and
that.
pat, right? So you've got,
Mhm.
and I think a lot of businesses are struggling at the moment. They introduce these really industry leading parental leaves, but then you've got gaps in the business where people are taking break,
Mhm.
is there an opportunity where you go, well, here's this workforce that wants to work. 9 times out of 10, their kids are grown or they don't have any,
Mhm.
but you've got this group of people who are saying we want to work, we've got experience, all this stuff. And then you've
Mhm.
got this gap in your business. Maybe there's some creative ways to think about, you know, filling some of these gaps with people who are in that bracket.
Yeah, I think one of the good points that you lightly touched on earlier too is that you have to think about also who your customer is. So
Yeah.
when you are at a startup or a high growth company, like you are obviously going to at some point need to sell into the enterprise. And I think, yeah, it's really cool to have young founders come in and talk to, the C suite at American Airlines. But at the end of the day, like who has that experience to turn how you talk to that business from, jargony tech speak to an actual board level C suite roundtable conversation. And that takes experience in knowing how to elevate messaging outside of like the nitty gritties of a business. And also, how good is it to have people that maybe you've had run in the same circles before because you're all at that age group where you can at least like have some commonality as well.
Yeah, I think you're just missing a trick if you're eliminating a whole generation from your workforce. Like I just
Hmm.
think, and I would say that the same end as well. If you only have really senior people, really like, then you're not getting that kind of influx of talent. And like I think it applies across the board. And I think what's happening is it feels like we've got the rest of it sorted, and then we hit this threshold and it's like, oh, we don't need
Hmm.
those people anymore. And I think that's just a shame. I think we need to get ourselves out of that mindset that these people aren't suited to some of these younger skewed businesses.
Hmm. Hmm. What do you think about things that actually fix all of this? Like, what is it? I've got some things written down here of just kind of think from what we've collected from the articles and like the LinkedIn posts that we found this on. But is there anything that comes to mind or top of mind for you on how to go about fixing this type of ageism within organizations or even a mindset around it?
I think there's like really strong things you can do. Like you could set in quotas for your business, much like you would, lots of people have targets for gender diversity in their business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you want to have a target of a percentage of your business is made up of this generation?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you could do that. I think at least that's a forcing function to look at your candidates that come through the pipeline. It and whether it needs to be a hard target or it's a soft target. But I think that's at kind of the extreme end. If you actually want to start to measure it and be serious about it, I
Mm-hmm.
think in general there could be more training and awareness on unconscious bias around age.
Yeah.
um, I think when we all think about it, I think we all have it somewhere in us, in different ways. And I think we've all at different stages probably done it to someone or thought it in our
Yeah.
head, um, or someone's done it to us. I think so. I think anything you can do around creating awareness that this exists, because it
Mm-hmm.
does. Um, what are some of the softer things? Maybe it's setting up communities. I don't know. What other ideas do you have?
Yeah, I mean, here's kind of what I've got jotted down. So, put it maybe thinking about job specs and
Hmm.
actually having
Oh yeah.
specific skills that you're looking for and what that looks like when you're actually hiring. Mine are more like personal things of what you can do for yourself to like
Yeah.
reposition yourself out of
Oh, nice. I
looking
like that.
old on paper, maybe. Yeah.
Totally.
So one, call my dermatologist. No. No. So thinking about from a personal perspective, it's like reframe your resume like around outcomes and judgment. So
Mhm.
thinking about it that
Oh,
way.
I like
So
that.
like problems you've solved, like and really thinking about that rather than just like things that you've done many times. So like less about reps, more about outcomes and judgment.
Nice. I
Um,
like
I
that.
also I also think that there's a big piece around this, around building a personal brand and why it's so important. Like, we've talked about this a lot, but I think there's so many other elements outside of just like being visible, where building a personal brand shows your personality and people start to understand your tone a little bit more. It also, once you get more comfortable, you can be a bit more cheeky. Maybe there is an
Mhm.
opportunity to, like, if you talk to your friends differently than how you talk at work. I don't understand that. That's not how I roll. But like, maybe you get more comfortable, like having more fun online on your pl- uh, profile, having more fun on LinkedIn where you're engaging with people and people start to get a vibe that way. Um, but I think your reputation and what you've done and your personality and how fun you are to work with travels better than like proof in your career as well.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
just think personal brand could be a big thing for that.
Yep.
Um, I don't know. I also think that people that are stuck trying to find roles and feeling like ageism for a full-time job is maybe not a winner for them. Like, maybe consulting, like
Yeah. Go out on your own.
put your
Yeah.
hammer hat on and then get to adopt a whole new persona, which is kind of what I did. And like get to go in and be
Yeah.
that person for 3 months to work with the executive team, build them up, be the adult in the room, and then move on to the next client. Like, maybe there's an opportunity for you to rethink what your career also looks like rather than trying to square peg round hole as
Yeah.
well. Um
I think the other thing is like, and I'm sure people are doing this, but I guess I think the experience you have up until this date is great and will always be
mhm,
valuable, but you do need to maintain currency. And so I think if you don't feel like you're up to date on the tools, on the AI, things that are available to
mhm,
you, I think just investing some time in that will go a long way. And I'm sure people are doing that, but I think sometimes it's like just expecting that the experience on its own, without coupling it with kind of where the industry is at, I think it
mhm.
just you just need to marry the two together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point because I also think when you have so much experience, and I've gone through this as well, and I go through this when I'm pitching clients on calls. I go through this, every now and then I'll
Totally.
like do an interview for funsies if someone reach out to me for an interesting company. But it's like, when you have 20 years of experience in your career, it's almost hard to like sit and pinpoint examples when you've literally done everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
I
I
think,
think trying to see what is needed now in a modern comms environment,
yeah,
and trying to understand that. And
yeah,
your experience will still apply to that, right? It just might look different. But I think trying to understand that the comms environment of today maybe isn't the same, but that your experience will translate over. But you need to be able to talk in the context of the comms landscape today.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's one thing is that, clients, at least that I'm seeing too, they want modern comms,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they don't. So, like, what I mean by that is like they want new media. They want to
Yeah.
like think about like where are the different avenues? How do we do things outside of a press release? We want to
Yeah.
move quickly on things. Like, maybe it's about rethinking. Like, I know how to do all of this, and more about rethinking. Um, how am I fitting into my audience right now when you're
Yeah.
interviewing for a
Yeah.
role? Like,
Yeah.
showing them that you can still have that level of creativity outside of best practices that we know will end
Yeah.
up being will doing anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you are good at identifying stories and, back in the day pitching and all those things, then it's still going to be applicable and great now. You just might need to frame it differently in the way that
Yeah.
what that skill is and what that looks like.
I also think with experience too, and this is something that I would encourage people to if they're feeling like they're experiencing this like ageism kind of effect as well, like, remember that a steady hand in a stressful situation or a
Yeah.
crisis is the most valuable thing that you can have for a leader and give for a leader. I think
Yeah.
that comes with experience. I think showing examples of that and showing where you've navigated through really tough
Really
situations,
complex, tough situations. Yeah.
Exactly. Only feels like an investment rather than, something that is something that you can learn really quickly when you're in the moment. So I think that, I don't know, I just think that there's some value in that as well, and thinking about what that steady hand looks like and where those examples can come up. Because I think at the end of the day, um, it, I think at the end of the day, that's what it'll come down to for a lot of people as well, is just having that experience.
Yeah, I think you know, I have interviewed for some companies in the past where I left the interview process thinking there's no adults in the room at this place.
Mm.
And I think, do you know what I mean? Like, you just get this feeling that, like, I don't know, I won't name the companies, but like, there's been a couple
Yeah.
that I've interviewed for where I walked away from a series of interviews and just thought, I'm not sure who the adults are here that are,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to be condescending, but that was the feeling, is that there was a lot of youth, but not a
Hmm.
lot of, to your point, steady hands with experience who kind of have seen this, done this, and know how to navigate it. And
Hmm.
I just remember thinking, that doesn't, I need to be, I want to be around people who have more experience than me, who have more
Yeah.
lived experience than me, who have more career experience than me. I want that for me. Um, and so this doesn't feel like I don't want to be the adult in the room. I still want some adults in the room. I don't
Well,
feel like no, I want
that's
that
the other
around.
thing is our that's such a good point, because our industry shifts and changes so much that we are still learning as well. Like, even
Yeah.
the people with experience are still learning, and I still want to learn. Like, I think that like constant learning is so important. So yeah, that's actually a really good point, but I know exactly what you mean by being adult in the room. I feel like everyone can relate to that a little bit,
Yeah.
particularly like if you're agency life, a consultant, or you have interviewed recently. I feel like
Yeah.
people would be like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This
Absolutely.
was like in between Salesforce and getting this job, there was a lot of interviews for different places. And you just get a vibe, right? And I just remember thinking,
Mhm.
"Yeah, I don't know about that one." So I
I
just
know.
would encourage us to like think really openly about what different people can offer for a comms team, a business. Um, and I would hate for our industry to go down this path. And I think we have an
Mhm.
opportunity as an industry to say, like, we're just not going to do that, and
Yeah.
let's be really supportive of these people trying to find roles, and let's, share opportunities. And I just think we, as an industry, I would really love us to be one of the industries that is better at this than
Yeah.
others.
I think a lot of
Um,
it has to do also with being able to sell ourselves and talk about like what that
yes.
actually looks
Yeah.
like. So
Yeah.
we all know that comms people are famously terrible at actually explaining what we do. So I think that
Yeah.
that's a piece of it potentially as well. You just reminded me. So one of the entrepreneurs that I work with, who's like quite well known in brand building and kind of in that space, she and I were talking about the future of comms and what that looks like. And one of the comments that she made was she only trusts people that have been in the industry for like 25, 30 years. And this is someone that really mentors and like builds up young brands. And she was like, honestly, I just think that comms people, you need to have somebody that can pick up the phone and just knows how to manage something, or has a really, really strong relationship with somebody. And that just takes time. She was like, I would rather work with one person who is, 25 years into their career versus like a young agency, which I thought is like a counterpoint to kind of what we're
Yeah.
seeing as well.
Yeah.
But I think it takes somebody that understands brand and relationships and networks to be able to have that realization. But just an interesting point I thought I'd throw out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just hope we can see value in all of it, right? It's like,
Hmm.
let's get some great young people in who, have a different perspective, and then let's lose the other end. And I think that's
Yeah.
the worry for me, is
Yeah.
is we're kind of focusing on the wrong well, we're just focusing too hard on youth, I
Yeah.
think.
One one thing that I did before we went out and before we started recording is I put my feelers out there into the mixing board community just to see if anyone had any
Nice.
thoughts about ageism and kind of like what they're saying. We got a couple of responses back. I'm going to keep these anonymous per request. Just slanging names out. But I thought this was an interesting one. So this person just reached out and said, when I left one of the biggest agencies where I was an SVP just before the pandemic. I was over 60. I had a lot of interviews at similar agencies, many of which went several rounds, but no offers. I'm very well connected and had stellar recommendations and referrals. I'm sure it was my age. That's when I
Mm,
decided to go out on my own, and I ended up earning about 30% more than my last salary in a completely non political, much more pleasant environment. The scenario angered me, but it turned out to be the best thing for me. So, I mean,
snaps.
snaps all around. God, don't you
So, I
just,
mean, yeah,
I,
terrible
I
in terms of the
te
interview experience.
absolutely
Yeah,
terrible, but fuck yeah, that's so
yeah,
cool. I love
yeah,
that. But yeah, that I mean, that's exactly what I'm saying as well. It's like maybe the answer is going out on your own and having that
yeah,
experience in the network, and the network serves itself. It's the gift that keeps on giving, really. Once you
yeah.
get to a certain age, and you're fun to work with and you're good at your job, people will help you
I
find work in
think
a consulting capacity.
I think the only challenge with that is not all markets are equal in terms of the opportunities for consultants and
Sure.
and the money that's available. So I think
Mhm.
um I still think it's worth exploring, but I think some of the challenges come when you're in a market that maybe doesn't embrace that as much as the US.
I was gonna
I
say
think
Australia
it's a
isn't as
challenge.
big of a consulting world, is it? Like,
I think it's starting, but no, it's
mm,
not. And mainly
mhm.
because maybe budgets, maybe I'm not exactly sure, and I am seeing more of it. I will say I'm seeing a little bit more of it, so maybe it's changing, but it's definitely not at the level of the US. But we also don't
Yeah.
have as big of a startup VC community. Like there's a whole bunch of things that need to come together for that to be, a viable option for people. And I don't know enough about the UK, but I would imagine maybe it's similar to Australia. Maybe there's not as big of a market, but I won't speak to
Mhm.
that because I'm not in that market. But yeah, I just yeah, I'm just conscious that maybe for some people there's not as much availability for work and that sort of thing. But I still think it's worth exploring. How do you pivot? What could that look like? Maybe
Yeah.
it's not going for the same role that you've always had, thinking differently about roles, thinking differently about different parts of the business. Like, I think there's lots of opportunity to just reimagine what your career could look like.
And it's such a good point because I do think as you age as well, you have the opportunity to reinvent what work looks like for you as well. So like
Yeah.
I think about like my career in chapters maybe a bit. So
Yeah.
in my 20s, it was just about learning as much as I can, meeting as many people as I could.
Yeah.
I'm sure most of us did this, worked like a dog every single
Yeah.
day, but work hard, play hard. And then
Yeah.
30s, I felt like was where my career was really starting to progress into a more senior role. I'm learning how to manage people. I'm learning how to manage up, manage down, manage multiple levels
Mm.
across teams, and then in my 40s, it was like, okay, I know what the fuck I'm doing. I get to now figure out does traditional work in the sense and job look
Suit
like
you. Or,
the career
yeah.
that I want. And so
Yeah.
then that's when consulting started. And now, like for me, I think about what do I want to do in my 50s? I'm like, I want to
Yeah.
sit on boards. I want to continue consulting. Like, I honestly think I'm not one of those people that ever wants to retire. I want to work forever. So what does that look like when I'm, fucking in my 60s? Like, I think thinking
70s.
about that in chapters, like, I mean, I'll
Yeah.
probably watch, I lived to 55 and I worried for no reason. But,
No, but
just
also
thinking, finding,
you could do a lot of experimental things with your face. So I'll wait and see what you do.
oh, can't wait. Oh my God. I'm just going to turn myself into an animal, like that South Park episode where Stan's
Guys,
dad
if
wants to be a
Christiana can
dolphin.
do it, if Christiana can do it, then
Oh my God. No, but
no.
also another thing that came in from the mixing board community that I wanted to offer as a resource. So somebody put the name forward, Andrew Bowens. He is the founder of a group on LinkedIn called Restless Urban, and it's a premier lifestyle media brand for adults over 50. So I've
Ooh,
been looking into some of the stuff that Andrew's been writing about. It's also nice because it's from a male's point of view, because I know we're
mm,
talking a lot about like a woman's perspective and what
yeah.
that looks like. But I just some of the content, give them a look on LinkedIn and give it Restless Urban a follow. But some of the thoughts are pretty candid, pretty honest, pretty open about what he's seeing, and about kind of the
Mm,
experiences that are coming across his desk. And so I just think that that might be maybe a source of comfort for some people and also community in that. So I just wanted to share that as well. Um,
Yeah,
because
I just
I,
think if you think this doesn't exist, go and start reading some stuff because it does exist. And I
mm,
think the more we're aware of it, then the more cognizant we are when we come into our own interview processes, when we're looking for roles. I think as a starting point, just go and make yourself aware that this is an issue and it's something that our industry needs to think about for sure.
yeah. Yeah. So like we're not telling you to go mutton dress as lamb to your interviews.
Is that your new favorite thing?
No, I just thought of it again. And I will next week I'm gonna fold it in next week somehow
That's
too.
why I'm like you have to apply it to everything every week. Just find a way to get mutton dressed as lamb in
No,
there.
it was a
Mm,
nice bridge. It was a nice bridge. I just found it.
I love it.
But yeah, no, I think it's a super important conversation. And thank you so much. Hold on. Let me give credit to the people that wrote these articles. So Joe Carr, if you want to go read this article, it's in PR Moment. It's called PR's Dirty Little Secret. Ageism Starts at 40. So Joe Carr wrote that article.
Yeah,
Duffy found it via a LinkedIn post by
yeah,
Becky Snazzle on LinkedIn. And she was the one talking about like your skills don't meet our needs kind of feedback that she'd
yeah,
been getting. So,
yeah.
but do you have any closing thoughts or should we think about, tell me how you were dumb in private this week?
Always. No, my closing thoughts are just I would love to hear from our community on this. And
Yeah.
then if there is someone who wants to come on who is a little bit older, who has struggled with this or has experience with this, like I'd love to have a guest on to talk about this. Because I think we've done our best, but I think it's something we should continue to do throughout the series if we can, is try and find people who want
Mhm.
to talk about this. Yeah, I'm just committed to like us being really open and transparent about this, that this is an issue in our industry and we need to talk about it. So yeah, that's my
Yeah.
closing
And
thoughts.
I guess that it's sensitive too. So if you just like want to
Yeah.
shoot us some experiences too,
Or
we'll
like
just like,
yes. We can
we
anonymize
can
things, don't you worry. Yeah.
I just did it. A
Um,
perfect example. Us 30
yeah.
seconds ago.
Yeah. We can do it. We're slick. We're slick. We
Yeah.
can. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I don't think I have a dumb in private this week. I can't think of
I
anything.
have
I mean,
one.
something. Oh, please go ahead.
Mamacita. I've got one. So I look at my shoulder. Do you see?
Oh
I
yeah.
have a burn.
Oh, the burn.
This also goes out to the ladies. I was curling my hair and not paying attention, and I literally just laid my curling iron down on my shoulder, and now it's a bubbly blister on my shoulder,
Okay.
and that's
Like
why I'm in
there's
private.
a third
You
degree
know?
burn there.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to realize it was on your shoulder?
I mean, like a second, but that's all it
Oh,
takes, baby
I was gonna
boo.
say it's quite
Like,
a bad burn. It looks like it was sitting there for a while.
it was one of those curling irons. It's like, it's not the ceramic heat, it's the cheap ones. And it's like
Um,
the
metal.
metal bamboozled, like absolutely ruin your life if it touches you. Fun fact, it's the same curling iron that burned my forehead and scarred it right here. And I burned it like
Maybe
an
it's
hour
time.
before.
Maybe it's time to invest in the old ceramic curling iron.
No. Um,
But does
yeah,
it do
but
good health? That's the main point. Does your hair look bouncy and beautiful once you've done it?
stunning. Best.
Stunning. Okay, well
I mean,
done.
look at me now. How could you say no?
That's a great one. Good one.
Yeah.
I'll I need to remember mine as we go throughout the week. That's
Just
partly my
write.
dumb and proud is I'm so dumb I can't remember when I do my
Here's
dumb and
about.
proud.
I'm gonna just start texting Andrew before each episode and
Great
just be
idea.
like, "Tell
He'll
me
give
what
you one.
Davisi did
Yeah,
this week," and then he'll be
he'll
able to
give you
tell
one
me. So, yeah,
for
Scott
sure.
always helps me with mine anyway, so it works out better that way. Well,
Alrighty.
thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing in ideas. Thank you to the mixing board community, as always, for being our homies and sending across some ideas and thoughts based on the episode. But if you guys want to tee up any topics for us, or you have guest ideas, or you want to tell us about your own experiences with this topic today in ageism, write us in, let us know. We'll, or comment on LinkedIn, Instagram, when we share these when they go live. Would love to keep a discussion open about this. But until then, we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks
Okay,
everyone.
bye.